if my client param size is greater than 1, client param increased by 1 equals true, then I update the number of hobos plus 1. My client param ends with set, then I set the number of hobos to the integer of the client param of new value. Then I throw a bunch of things into this JSON return map, an error message, an error code, the request UID, that GUID that I sent. I set the new page title. I throw the error stack in. Right here I tell it that it's the hobo handler. I tell it what response path we're at, what key we're at, you know, all these things. I iterate here through a system-wide JSON data handler and throw it into the JSON return. I make an XHR response UID out of system options response UID. So all these things I then encode JSON. JSON serialized in LDC09, by the way. Much better name. Thanks for that, Fletcher, Kyle. It's a much better name now. And then I've got my else's. Otherwise, all these things are blank. And then on the outside, yeah, sorry. So content body is now an encoded JSON map. And I do not want the rest of the core in these cases to load. So I simply spit content body out in the warp. And that is
Now, Chris, right now you're not doing any database stuff, right? This is all strictly.
Yeah, this is all just how many hobos just in the session, and yeah, that's all. I mean, yeah, there's no database stuff here.
So when you implement this within a database, you have the potential to exponentially increase the transactions on the SQL database, and you probably would never want to do this with FileMaker.
Well, yeah, I mean, you certainly wouldn't want to go look up in FileMaker every time, no.
Yeah.
But you can still ask the system, and the system can have it in memory. And have the system have a different rule for how often it checks FileMaker than how often it responds. I mean, you still might want your page to look up how many hobos there are every 2 seconds or 5 seconds, even though the system doesn't want to look in FileMaker every 2 seconds or 5 seconds.
Okay, I gotcha. So you might access the database at a different rate than the polling is going on.
Exactly. Yeah,
okay.
The polling, yeah, I mean, almost certainly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look it up once. If it changes, set something that tells the next time next time it is polled to look up the new value again. If it doesn't change again, just send back the same value. Don't look it up. Yeah, you know, that kind of thing. And I mean, maybe, hopefully, you can see that there's hundreds and hundreds of places in sites where you might be checking and setting data. I mean, think of Gmail, all the different stuff that's going on there, and it all takes place through little tiny AJAX calls. And it's really not that hard to get a system going that JavaScript just asks Lasso for stuff, Lasso sets it or retrieves it, sends it back. Yeah, here's the number of hobos called. Got my response UID. That request UID is blank. That's no good. Anyway, here's number of hobos. would be possible to decrease the how often the poll checks if the value it keeps getting back is the same over and over and over. If it changes it again, bump it back down to like 2 seconds. But then if it stays the same value for the next 25 minutes, maybe drop it down to 50 seconds, something like that. Yeah, there's nothing technically here preventing you from making the system respond based on those kinds of rules. All right, let's go back to polling. Yeah, so it checks how many hobos there are, and it updates the value. And that is essentially how we can sit here and increase the number of hobos by 1. And wake from sleep isn't appearing to work over here, huh? Increase didn't work.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, there we go. Huh. So, it's noon. Questions?
If you wanted to interact with the database, where in the stream would you put that?
In this stream, I'm going to do that in, let's say I might do that right here. After I've seen if the hobo's value exists at all in memory. After I've seen if I'm only supposed to increase it by 1, or after if I've seen I'm supposed to set an explicit new value, then at that point I would do my database interaction. Right, exactly. Then these kinds of things, the error code and error handling would, if you weren't able to update the database, you would set your error code accordingly and that kind of thing. I figured you all were smart enough that I didn't go and explicitize every one of those things. But yeah, in this particular workflow, I would update the hobos table right here. Anything else? Okay. Yeah, I will. I've got. It's not the entire working system, but I've got the JavaScript used here, and the XHR response stuff that I use normally, the lasso side and the JavaScript side. Essentially, I've got little simplified versions that don't depend on the entire system here. They're not self-contained and working, but the pieces be able to drop in and start to play with them. And I'll make that available after I get back to North America, not while I'm preparing for Asset Manager.